Welcome to Growing Younger podcast, where we guide you through your journey of reaching your fitness goals after 40.
The topic of today's podcast is the muscle loss nobody warns you about after 50 and how to reverse it. So this is a very important subject, and I'm sure you have heard about the importance of strength training, particularly as we get older. But I'm going to try and clarify why it bears such significance, why building muscle strength is so crucial for our function, but also overall health, particularly after the age of 50. Now, I just want to set the scene first, okay? So I want to give you some very quick but easy to understand stats, okay? So after the age of 30, so our muscle strength tends to peak between sort of 25 to 30 years old, okay? Now, after 30, our muscle mass and strength tends to decline. So we tend to lose about 3 to 8% of muscle mass every single decade. So every 10 years of our life after 30, we tend to lose between 3 to 8% of muscle mass, okay? So that is very significant. Now, unfortunately, after the age of 50, that muscle loss accelerates, okay? So there's actually a medical term for age-related muscle loss, which is sarcopenia, okay? So sarcopenia stands for age-related muscle loss, okay? Now, if you add those numbers, so by the time you reach your 70s, you would have lost about 20 to 30% of your muscle mass. Now, unfortunately, I have some more bad news for you. So muscle mass and strength are not quite exactly the same thing, and muscle strength tends to decline even faster with age, okay? Now, all these numbers, they may seem a little bit meaningless unless you start to relate to how it affects you in your day-to-day life. So once you lose significant amount of your muscle strength, you may start to have difficulties living your normal day-to-day life independently. So things like getting up off the floor, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, picking up a grocery bag from the supermarket trolley and putting it in the back of your car. So even like opening jars, all these things, they start to become more difficult. And that is really when it starts to affect us. That's when it's really starts to, affect the way we live our lives and the quality of our lives. Now, here's another interesting point. So muscle strength affects us on multiple different levels. And this is something that most people don't realize. So yes, it does affect our function. So like I said, things like climbing stairs, getting up off the floor. It also helps to prevent falls. So particularly with the older people, if your leg muscle strength declines, to a certain point, you start to become very unsteady on your feet. So then you run a higher risk of falling down and sustaining a serious injury. So all these things, they're sort of common sense. So of course, if you're losing muscle mass and strength, it will affect how you live your day-to-day life. But apart from that, muscle strength actually has a direct impact on the rest of our health. So for example, having more muscle in your body, it improves your glucose control, okay? So it actually affects your metabolism. Now, if you're wanting to lose weight, if you're carrying a bit of excess weight, and you lost quite a bit of muscle, it will affect your metabolism, meaning that your body is not burning as many calories as it could have been if you did have more muscle in your body. So just having muscle in your body automatically helps you to burn more calories, which is something that a lot of people don't realize. Now, also having more muscle in your body helps to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. I mean, did you know that? Like most people don't realize. Also, it helps to improve insulin sensitivity. So there's a lot of things that muscle help you health-wise. A lot of it is to do with improving your metabolism. It remains unknown for a lot of people. Now, strength training also has a positive effect on your bone density. So particularly if you're a woman over 50, you are especially at risk of developing what's called osteoporosis or osteopenia, which essentially stands for your bones becoming very fragile, and you sort of run a higher risk of, if you do fall, if you knock yourself hard, you have a higher risk of breaking your bones. So strength training, resistance training, helps to improve your bone strength as well. Now, another important dimension to strength is lately there have been a few studies which showed a very interesting link between strength, muscle strength, and overall risk of mortality or risk of death. Okay, so what they've actually found is that your muscle strength is directly linked to the risk of dying, essentially. Okay, so the stronger you are, the lower the risk of dying. And there's one particular study, they actually looked at the grip strength. So they took a number of people, measured their grip strength, followed them up for a period of time, and they found that the people with the lower grip strength were more likely to die over the next few years. Now, the authors of the study, the people who ran the study, they couldn't quite fully explain why that was so. Okay, they couldn't quite understand the link between the grip strength and why people were more likely to die if you had weaker grip strength, but that was proven to be the fact. So whatever the cause, whatever the causes, if you are weaker, if your muscles are weaker, you run a higher risk of dying. So a very, very interesting result there. Hey guys, really quickly, we've put together a whole body strengthening guide that's designed specifically for people over 50. So if you'd like to strengthen your muscles in a safe and effective way, just head down to the description of this podcast and click on the link, fill in your contact details, and we'll send the guide to you straight away. Now, another point that I want to address head on when it comes to strength training, and this is something that we hear a lot from our clients or to-be clients, people who come to us to have a chat about how we can help them at growing younger. So people quite often think, particularly people over 50, they think that strength training involves lifting heavy weights, almost like they think that by strength training you're going to become a bodybuilder. Okay, that is so false. That is so not true. The majority of people who strength train, they don't lift heavy weights. You just started where you feel comfortable, and you little by little you start to increase the intensity as your body adapts. So as you get stronger, you can then lift a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay. So the majority of people who strength train, they never want to become a bodybuilder or anything similar to that. They're just normal people like yourself who just want to future-proof their body, their health. They want to stay functional for many years to come. And this is the main reason that you should be strength training, is because you will thank yourself for strength training now, because in the future, you'll be so much better off. Your quality of life will be better. You'll feel confident. You'll preserve the independence, particularly in your older age. So I'm just going to try to answer the question, how much strength training you need in order to actually get the result. So first of all, any strength training is better than no strength training, okay? Now, if you haven't been strength training lately, probably even doing 2 sessions a week is enough to start to see a bit of a change, okay? So if you strength train twice a week for even 3 or 4 weeks, you will likely start to see an improvement, okay? Now, ideally, you probably want to be strength training 3 times a week if you can manage it. Again, you don't have to do it every day. You don't have to spend hours in the gym, but 3 kind of moderate intensity sessions in the gym is probably all you need per week. So the official recommendation is So for each session, you need to do between sort of 6 to 10 different exercises. For each exercise, you do 1 to 3 sets. Again, depending on whether you're starting, if you're relatively new to strength training, you could probably start with 1 or 2 sets, and then gradually you can increase it to 3. And you start from about 10 to 15 repetitions per each set, okay? So, I mean, if this all kind of sounds gibberish, I would strongly recommend, if you really don't know much about strength training, getting an advice from a personal trainer would probably go a long way. Now, in terms of the selection of actual exercises that you do to help you improve your muscle strength, so there's 5 major movement patterns that you probably need to include. So one is a squat pattern, a hip hinge pattern, a push-pull, and a core, okay? So an example would be, so a squat pattern could be as simple as a sit to stand. So you're standing up from a chair. So that's a very simple version of a squat. A hinge type exercise could be a step up, okay? So you're hinging through the hip. You are leveraging your hip muscles to push yourself up. So a simple exercise would be a step up, okay? A pull would be some kind of a rowing exercise. So whether it's a seated row or bent over row, that could be a pull. A push is a press, essentially. So whether it's a chest press or a shoulder press. Now, obviously, I don't know your situation. I don't know what possible injuries you may have. So, shoulder press may not be suitable for you. But, this is just a general example. Core strength could be some version of a plank. So it could be an inclined plank, a kneeling plank. Again, it depends on what injuries you may have. This needs to be adjusted to your situation. But the general principle with strength training is that we call it progressive overload. So you start where you feel relatively comfortable. You want to get to a point where your muscles start to feel a little bit tired, okay? So you want to challenge yourself just a little bit, okay? Because when you challenge your muscles, that's when they really start to grow. And I don't mean you don't have to get it to the level where you are completely exhausted and you are in pain, okay? But a little bit of tiredness in your muscles is probably what you want, okay? And then you will see that after a few weeks of doing that, your muscles will get stronger. So that exercise you were doing before, it starts to become easier. And once it becomes quite easy, then you increase the weight, or you increase resistance, or you increase the number of times you do it. So little by little, you start to increase the intensity, and then that becomes easier again, okay? And then when that becomes easier, you increase it further. So you keep on increasing it little by little. At no point in time, you should be in a lot of pain. If you are hurting, you're probably doing something wrong, and you should reevaluate what you're actually doing. Now, the last part of this podcast that I want to address is the whole debate about strength training versus cardio. Okay, so what I want to say is that to stay healthy and to stay functional, you need both. Now, strength training is quite different to cardio. So cardio exercises is what gets your cardiovascular system working. So usually it is exercises that are relatively low intensity, but they are long duration. So think of walking, cycling, swimming, doing some gardening. That's also a type of cardio exercise. Strength training is when you're challenging the muscles, when you're lifting a bit of weight. Sometimes you use your own body weight, but essentially you are. It's more intense and it's shorter duration. Okay, so like doing say 10 squats is definitely a strength exercise. Okay, now strength training is important and cardio is important as well. So cardio is more important for your general health. So for your heart to function, for your lungs to function, to get the blood flowing through the body, you definitely need that. Okay, however, a lot of people believe that just by doing cardio exercises such as walking, it takes care of all their exercise needs. Now, that is definitely not the case. So walking, for example, is good for your cardio, but it does not do anything for muscle strengthening. So a lot of people who come to us, they believe that by walking, they their leg muscles get stronger. It's actually not the case. Like even if you add some hill walking, it still only does a tiny bit of strength training that they need. So that's not enough. So the benefits for your body that strength training provides includes stimulating and improving muscle strength, which is your function. It helps to improve bone density, and also a lot of the strength exercises, particularly the ones targeting your leg muscles, they help to improve your balance as well. So cardio exercises, they really don't do much in those, in those areas. So I just want to emphasize, you need both. You need cardio for your general health, and you need strength training, particularly for your muscles to stay strong, but also to maintain good function, prevent falls, and also to maintain good metabolism. So as a general guideline, if you're a person over 50, if you're not an athlete, you probably want to be doing about 3 sessions a week of strength training. And with cardio exercises, you want to be doing about 150 minutes per week of moderate activity exercise. So maybe brisk walking, cycling, swimming, whatever it is for you, okay? So if you do those two, it will you'll help to look after yourself, and you will help to future-proof your body for years to come. Okay, and the last thing I want to address, again, it's a false belief that a lot of particularly older people have, is that, if you're a person in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, and you've never done strength training, and you're starting to see that your muscle strength is declining, you may believe that it's too late. You may believe that once you lost muscle strength, that's it. Like you can't get it back. It's not true. There's actually quite a number of studies that say that you can reverse muscle degradation or muscle weakening, wasting, even in the older age. So there's been studies who looked at people in their 70s and 80s, and they achieved some remarkable results. Some of these people managed to double their muscle strength. So it's never too late. Whatever situation you found yourself in, no matter how weak you are now, in most cases, you should be able to strengthen and improve your muscle strength. In fact, I would say, if you're starting from a lower point of muscle strength, you will probably find that you make progress faster. Okay? So if your muscle strength right now is at a very low point, and you haven't done muscle strengthening in a long time, you will find that over the first maybe 3 or 4 months, as long as you're doing the right type of exercise, you will see some leaps and big jumps in your muscle strength. So I guess it's a reward for you to try it. Okay, is the lower the point you're starting from, the higher will be the rate of improvement. Okay, so let this encourage you to actually get started. It's never too late. So look, guys, hopefully this helps to motivate you to either, if you're not doing anything now, to start strength training, or if you are doing a little bit of strength training, maybe to get more consistent, because there are very few other things that will make such a big difference to your health, to your function, to your confidence later in life if you just maintain muscle strength. And the earlier you start, the better. All right? All the best for now, and I'll speak to you on the next podcast.